Okay, I've decided that this statute should be part of the video presentation that I just did in 4 parts on the expose of the income tax. And I'm not sure if I can figure out how to attach this to one of the parts or if it'll just stand separately, but this should be there. This is IRS Code Section 7608. And it establishes the authority of Internal Revenue Enforcement officers, and that's what we're going to look at. I'm Thomas Freed, the tax-freedom.com website, and the @taxfreedom, again with a hyphen, YouTube channel. I've got videos posted there that walk you through the entire income tax laws from 1913 today and prove beyond the shadow of a doubt you don't owe the income tax and you have no duty or requirement to file any tax return. Form 1040. So if you're interested in that information and would like to see the proof and know why and understand the law, you need to go track down those 3 videos. They're in 4 parts, four videos. They're all about 1 hour long, 45 minutes to 60 minutes. They explain everything and show you the hidden information that's been secreted and kept from you. And this, of course, is the last piece, 7608, Authority of Internal Revenue Enforcement Officers. Now, this is a statute that gives IRS agents and officers authority to operate, perform. Subsection A, enforcement of Subtitle E and other laws pertaining to liquor, tobacco, and firearms. Subtitle E is Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearm Code provisions. Go along with Title 27, which is the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms statutes. There's some ATF tax provisions, enforcement in Subtitle E and Subtitle F and Title 26. So this is the authority of the Internal Revenue officers pertaining to liquor, tobacco, and firearms. Enforcement of Subtitle E and other laws pertaining to liquor, tobacco, and firearms. It says any investigator, agent, or other Internal Revenue officer by whatever term designated whom the Secretary charges with the duty of enforcing any of the criminal seizure or forfeiture provisions of Subtitle E or of any other law of the United States pertaining to the commodities subject to tax under such subtitle, for the enforcement of which the security is responsible, may 1. Carry firearms, 2. Execute and serve search warrants and arrest warrants and serve subpoenas and summonses, 3. In the performance of such duty, make arrests without warrant for any offense committed in his presence or any felony cognizable under the laws if he has reasonable grounds to believe that the person to be arrested has committed or is committing such felony. So that's basically witnessed the commission of a crime or is witnessing one. And 4. In respect to the performance of such duty, make such seizures of property subject to forfeiture. Okay, so what this says is the Internal Revenue agents and officers, by any term designated, can enforce Subtitle E tax law pertaining to commodities subject to tax. Where is the authority to enforce Subtitle C, employment taxes? Subtitle A, income taxes. Subtitle B, estate and gift taxes. The only subtitle this statute makes enforceable is ATF taxes. The reason why this is important is because we have a government of limited powers that are only authorized to do the things that are written in the law. And if this is the only statute that authorizes revenue agents and officers by whatever term designated to operate within America, then everything they've done with income tax enforcement for 75 years is a crime. They've exceeded the authority of the office they possess. So where is the statute that enlarges the capacity to act and to operate within the law of these revenue agents and officers, everybody in the IRS by whatever term designated? Where is the statute that enlarges their capacity to act beyond Subtitle E, tax law enforcement? It doesn't exist. Just like I showed you in part 4 of the expose on the income tax, that all the statutes for enforcement are only published with applicability to Title 27 and ATF enforcement, just like the IRS agent is only authorized. This all comes out of the Prohibition era, before they were doing income tax enforcement against individuals. There's no authority in the law for a revenue agent to act outside of Subtitle E. There are assessment statutes that he can do inside of Subtitle E. There's levy statutes that he can do inside of Subtitle E. There's a lien statute that he can do inside of Subtitle E. And they can make seizures of property subject to forfeiture. That's actually defined in law, property subject to forfeiture. It's only items used in the ATF business. That'll probably be another video. I'm going to do a video on the lien and show how they abuse that, and it's not legal either. But right now, this proves the IRS is lying to you. These people have no business at all trying to enforce a tax on your labor as though it were a direct tax on income. It's not. And that's another thing that the 4-part video series exposes and proves. So who would be authorized to enforce Subtitle A, Subtitle B, Subtitle C, all the other subtitles before E that deal with things other than alcohol and tobacco? Is there another statute anywhere that gives that authority to some other class of persons, or maybe a limited subset of this expansive class by whatever term designated? Everybody at the IRS. The way I read this, it means the janitor at the IRS could do this. Whatever term designated. If he works there, he can do it. Well, this is a very broad authority to enforce Subtitle E tax, but there's absolutely no authority at all in it, or any of the specific grants of authority that he has. So is there another statute that grants any authority to any other persons beyond this to Subtitle E? Oh, well, yes, there is. It's the very next code section, subsection B of 7608. Enforcement of laws relating to internal revenue other than Subtitle E. Oh, that would be Subtitle A, income tax. Subtitle C, employment tax. And it says, any criminal investigator of the Intelligence Division of the IRS, whom the Secretary charges with the duty of enforcing any of the criminal provisions of the Internal Revenue Service, any other criminal provision of law relating to internal revenue for the enforcement of which the Secretary is responsible, or any other law for which the Secretary has delegated investigatory authority to the Internal Revenue Service. Any other law expands beyond criminal and goes to civil. The only civil and criminal enforcement authority that exists in the granted statutes of the United States Code, and specifically the Internal Revenue Code under Title 26, the only authority to enforce the income tax is given to a criminal investigator of the Intelligence Division. Intelligence means it's foreign. We don't spy on Americans. Anywhere where you see the word intelligence, you know it's limited to foreign operations, which again is one of the things that the 4-part video series proves beyond the shadow of a doubt. And this tells us that only a criminal investigator of the Intelligence Division has authority to enforce the civil laws for tax as an agent of the IRS. But the criminal investigator of the Intelligence Division isn't allowed to investigate things in America, only things that involve foreign spaces or foreign person. And we have that as provable data in the 4-part video presentation. That's shown as well, what they have authority to do. So here you have it. The revenue agents can enforce alcohol, tobacco, and firearm. You need a crime to go after Subtitle A. That means the only thing that they're really authorized to do in the enforcement of Subtitle A tax law is prosecute, investigate people, and demand more money from them who have lied on the Form 1040. If they think you've lied on the Form 1040 because they have a W-2 or a 1099 that says you made $100,000 and you only put down $10,000, well, then that's a crime, lying on the form. Now the criminal investigator can jump out of his foreign authority and investigate the crime, supposedly. Shouldn't be able to jump out of his foreign authority, but lying on the tax return is made a crime by the statutes, and the criminal investigators are the ones that go after crimes in the IRS. So they're assigned that responsibility, but only where they can identify a crime. And without that, he has nothing to investigate. So if you don't lie on the Form 1040, or don't file one, they can't do anything about it, which the 4-part video series showed and proved that in a situation where an individual fails to make a tax return form that is allegedly required by law, well, the only duty that exists in law to make that required return and file it where it has been failed by the individual who allegedly was supposed to do it, the only duty in the law to do it is handed to the secretary under section 6020B, which authorizes the secretary to prepare a substitute for return for any individual who has allegedly failed to provide the information required by law on a return. The individual isn't required to provide the return. If he fails to do that, it's the secretary who has the duty. So every single prosecution of failure to file in the last 80 years has been fraud. The only duty that exists to file is under 6020B. It's given to the secretary, not the individual citizen, who has a Fourth Amendment right to be secure in person, papers, houses, and effects, and a Fifth Amendment right to not provide any information that may be used against him in a court of law, which can be done with the Form 1040 as a voluntarily filed form. So they can't force you, and the duty isn't in the law because it would violate your rights. And all of this is shown again in the 4-part video series, Income Tax Exposed. So that's where we're at. Again, make seizures of property subject to forfeiture down here at the bottom. I think you can see that, right? Yeah, you can see that. Make seizures is subject to forfeiture, again, is defined as only property involved in alcohol, tobacco, and firearms businesses. And we see that only the criminal investigator is allowed to make seizures outside of Subtitle E. That means every levy ever done by any Internal Revenue agent up there under A, allegedly only for ATF, violated the law. If the levy isn't laid by a criminal investigator, it's not being made by a person authorized in law to issue levy under Subtitle A. Now, this statute is pretty important. It proves that the IRS agents are never working in an official capacity when they try to enforce a Subtitle A income tax or lack of payment or a filing requirement on the United States citizens based on earnings reported by an employer under Subtitle C. None of those authorities are here in the statute. They're distinctly separated by Congress, who intentionally created the revenue force to go after the ATF taxes that Prohibition put in place and made a big deal about enforcing. The Subtitle A income taxes are only enforceable by the IRS through a criminal investigator investigating an actual crime. Failing to file isn't a crime, only lying on the form. So, if you want to know the rest of the story, you probably ought to find your way over to taxfreedom.com and get reading, or find your way to the Tax Freedom YouTube channel and watch the 4 videos that expose the truth about the income tax system from beginning to end, starting in 1913, running through Donald Trump's tax law change in 2018. So, 1913 to 2018, 100 years of evolution of the code. It's all exposed. It's great video. You'll love it if you're interested in the topic or if you know there's something wrong with the way the IRS behaves.